Welcome to Radio Lou listeners. I'm John Carter, and today I'm going to be interviewing Sim, who is a local Lou resident and who has had quite an interesting and varied life. So we're going to have a little chat with him to see what he's been up to. Welcome to Radio Lou, Sim.
Hi Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, and tell me where your younger years were spent.
I grew up in Lou and basically just thrived down the quay and go fishing and had my own boat and worked my way up to skipper my own trawler.
Oh, did you? So you were a trawler in the old days?
It was only a small one, but I was, I think at that point, I was the youngest skipper in the harbour at 21.
Really?
And on my downtime from fishing, I used to go in the Jolly over West Lou and play in a folk band with Paul Greenwood. And that used to be my Saturday nights over there doing that.
Oh, right. Were you in a sort of a band or of any sort, or were you just the two of you? Or
basically a pub session, but it was brilliant back in the day. We used to have some great evenings over there, as I'm sure lots of people will remember. But yeah, music became a big part of my life. And when I sold my boat, I think it was 92 on the days at sea policy. He'd give me 90 days a year to make a living, so I sold the boat.
Oh, really? So that was one of these EU regulations, was it, or something? Or
yeah, fantastic European Union regulations, or wherever it came down from. I had 90 days to make a living with a 30-foot boat, which is just ridiculous. So I laid her up and sold her. And at that time, I decided, well, I'd go and have a look at what Nashville was like, because obviously playing the banjo, I was very into bluegrass banjo and all the stuff. And again, it's pretty limited, the exposure to it, so why not just go and see the real deal? So jumped on a plane and 95 went to Nashville.
Did you go on your own, Sim? Yeah?
I actually went with my mother. She came along with me, so we both went over there. The only contact I had was a guy called Curtis McPeak, who was an old banjo player, instrument dealer, who I'd bought a banjo on some mail order. So we just basically headed to Curtis's house, and while I was there, he got a phone call from the Gibson guitar company saying that the banjo he'd ordered was ready to pick up. And as it happened, I was on the way into the factory for him. The next day, he picked me up and took me into the factory, and I had a look around there, which was brilliant. You know, it was like seventh heaven for me. And I kind of got in with the guy that was shaping the banjo next, Ed Weber. He basically took us under his wing and took us all around all the jam sections and stuff in town, because he was a banjo player. Right,
so you were in a band in those early days, or were you just
No. Literally, I just got over on holiday, so you know, he took me around. He and the fiddle player in the band that he was with is now my wife.
Oh, really? Oh, well, that was a nice coincidence, wasn't it? That was very good.
And also from that very same connection, I met the bass player Larry Sandlin. He knew Charlie Darrington, who was the go-to instrument repairman in Nashville. And he used to literally get everybody, who was anybody that had a broken instrument, used to go to pretty much to Charlie. So Charlie took me on board, and I worked for him for a year.
Right, so you eventually moved to America, and then you got into repairing banjos and mandolins and stuff.
Yeah, again, let's say it was Charlie that got me involved with that, and through that one connection, through Ed at Gibson, which was, all the stars just happened to align. I worked for Charlie for probably about a year, and then Gibson bought him out, and they headed up what's called the original acoustic instrument division, and he basically told them, well, if I'm going to go, I want to bring Sim with me, or I'm not going to go at all. So that was kind of nice. He had that much faith in me, so I was whisked off to work at Gibson and worked there for 4.5 years, I think it was, and I ended up actually running the mandolin division. Me and Charlie retooled it, and I took that division from 4 mandolins a week to my best week was a 3-week month, and we built 95 mandolins in 3 weeks.
How interesting, yeah, because Gibson are they are the leading guitar makers as well, aren't they? So that must have been quite an experience, and quite flattering to have Gibson coming along and getting you on board.
Yeah, to a point, but it is, again, it's big corporate America, and 4.5 years was enough working from there, and then apparently 95 mandolins in 3 weeks wasn't enough for them, so we had a parting of ways, putting it mildly. So I went to work for myself and set up my own repair shop at home, and basically took all Charlie's client base from the repair shop that he used to have, and they used to come out to me at the house. You had people like Brooks and Dunn, Vince Gill would come out, Dan Tyminski, all of Alison Krauss's band.
Oh my goodness, all these country and western stars, and I guess other famous musicians as well. Any particular stories that you can recount about how you met them and what they were like and that sort of stuff? Any thoughts on that front?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's like all the musicians that have really made it as such, they're pretty decent people, but it's all the people that kind of want to make it, you've got to watch yourself with. It's a very dog-eat-dog society with the music.
Yeah, it's hard work, isn't it, getting up to the top? And I guess once you're at the top, you feel a little bit more relaxed.
Particularly Alison Krause's band, Ron. I was very good friends with Ron and Alison and Dan Tominski, who did the Oh Brother Where Art Thou film. And really good people, still friends with them today.
Did you actually ever get on the stage with any of these people? Or?
There's a guy called Jimmy Martin, and they called him the king of bluegrass music, and he was a bit of a rebel, and he became a very good friend of mine in his latter years, and I actually got to play on stage, a pretty big feather in my cap, but I played in several bands while I was over there, some really good bands that I was privileged to be a part of.
Well, we can talk about that in a minute, but perhaps we'll take a little break now. We're going to play a little bit of your music, and we'll come back when we've heard a sample. Well, here we are. We're back here now, Sim. And yes, you were saying you were in several bands. Did you go on tours and things, or was it fairly local?
I played in a couple of 3 bands full-time, and I filled in with a few other bands as well. Probably the premier band that I played with was the Tina Adair band. That team is not particularly well known outside of the bluegrass circuit around Nashville and Southeast States, but an incredible talent. I don't know anybody that can't sing, that girl, and any genre of music she chooses to do. It was a great band. It's one of them bands where every aspect of it came together. The band was greater than the total of the parts in it. It was just a really good band. And we played semi-professionally up and down the country. The biggest venue we played at was the Indiana Fiddlers Gathering. I think we played 16,000 people at that we played in front of, which was
quite daunting, I should think, wasn't it? Yeah, yes.
I think with that band, it was so good. I would have stepped on stage anywhere after anybody with that lineup. It was a really good band.
And what was she like was she friendly and?
Yeah, Tina was mostly okay. She always called herself a diva, and she did live up to her expectations on that quite a bit. The Cornish Bluegrass Festival that used to be held down at the Hendra Holiday Park in September, and Dean Woon that was running that at the time, because I used to come back every year and try to get to that festival. And I talked to him about the possibility of putting a band together to come over to play, and I did that in 2007. I put a band together called the Cages Band, and that was myself and my wife singing and playing fiddle, Missy, and a few other people that have gone on to do other things, Daniel Hardin, Jenny Lynn Gardner and Tony Watt. And we actually headlined the Bluegrass Festival at Hendra in 2007, and we played a couple of gigs in lieu in the Boscon and one in the Ship, I think it was. And we made a CD for that as well, so that was another thing I was part of. I was also part of a band, Melanie Cannon, Tennessee Road. Now, Melanie, her father was probably one of the top 3 producers in Nashville. He produced go right from the 70s, literally everybody you can think of, those huge country stars. And Melanie was his daughter. She used to sing a lot of backup on the demos and the albums and stuff, and actually became banjo player for her band. She did kind of a pseudo bluegrass country thing. Played with Melanie for probably a year, maybe 2, I think. And that was quite the experience because she had revolving personnel in the band, so I got to play with some really, really top-flight musicians with that lineup. But it was a bit of a baptism by fire because it was pretty much seat of the pants every time you played, and it was just kind of thrown in, and you'd think it was fun, but you always found because of the quality of musicianship.
I guess if you're good enough, you can fit in reasonably well without people noticing, to be honest. So I think that's how it is.
If you get around some of them studio musicians over there, it's absolutely amazing. They can sit down and listen to a song no matter how complex, chart it out, and then go into the studio and cut phenomenal world-class breaks and polar opposites apart. Level is just unbelievable.
Yes, I know, it's sickening, isn't it? Because I play the guitar a bit and sing a bit, but these really accomplished people, they're not much encouragement to people like me. It must be great to move in those circles. And in fact, some of your own music, where was that created, and when were you playing on that particular session?
That's from the Tina Adair Band CD that we made. One of the songs was a song that I actually wrote myself for the Cages Bend album that we recorded on the Tina Adair Band album, and I named it after Snake Down, one of the old fishermen that used to be around years ago.
What, in Lou?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
so I
right.
took it Lou over to Nashville and brought it back again.
You were making mandolins and playing in bands in Nashville, and you met your wife there. And what prompted you to come back to dear old Lou?
Well, I'd come back in 2001, and it was a bit of a revelation, really, because at that point where I went to Nashville, I couldn't really wait to go. And then when I came back, it kind of brought it back exactly how different it was. And I started to miss it pretty bad from there. It took me a while to realise that I wanted to come back home, because at that point I was a little bit burnt out with the musicians and the music scene and everything. And actually I transitioned from building mandolins and guitars and repairing instruments. I actually transitioned into some of the distilleries, working at some of the whiskey distilleries around Nashville and producing Tennessee whiskey, and that kind of became the all-encompassing passion, if you like.
Oh, right, so you switched from the music business to the distillery business then?
Yeah, it just took my life over, and that was really the ticket for me to come back home.
Oh, right. Were you sort of working in a distillery, or were you just learning about the processes and things?
Yeah, I learned about the processes and stuff, and then I got a job at Beach Tree Distillery in downtown Nashville, and he made Tennessee whiskey and moonshine. And just a little micro distillery, but really, world class product he would put out.
Right, so you came back about 4 years ago, didn't you, I think, and you set up a distillery here in Lou, didn't you?
Yeah, me and Billy Martin set up the Copperfish Distillery at the end of the car park. I'd basically seen Bill and told him, what I was planning to do, and he had the facility, so we set the distillery up, but unfortunately that didn't work out between me and Bill, so we went our separate ways. So I took my equipment out. Bill carried on. I think he's making gin and stuff there now, and that's probably a year or so ago. In that time, I've been trying to strive to set up my own thing again, do my own whiskey distillery and stuff, and setting something up like that is quite an undertaking. I'm slowly starting to make headway now. I've got my Facebook page up, Sim's Penrock Distillery, so you can check it out on this.
What is the Facebook address?
It's Sim's Penrock Distillery. If you look that up, you'll find me on there.
Brilliant. So that's so you're setting that up at the moment. I think is that based in Liskeard, is it?
Yes, we'll be in Liskeard this time. There'll be a wholesale operation, so looking to get my product once I've got it made into his shop.
Now the big question: are you going to get back into the music business again? Do you think you might be? I was rather thinking of Minor Key, actually, because they do shanties down at the Jolly Sailor.
To be fair, I don't know, to be honest with you, because bluegrass music is the genre that I really know how to play. With the exception of a few bluegrass musicians in Cornwall, there's not really anybody to play. So to be fair, I haven't really touched the banjo since I've been back in the 4 years.
Right.
I've actually been playing guitar and trying to learn some songs, because I figure if I ever play any music, it'll probably be me playing guitar and singing. So it's been on the back burner because I've had so many other priorities that once I get the distillery going, who knows? I'm not going to never say never.
Never say never. Well, that's good. Well, I do hope you do, because you've obviously got a considerable talent, so you don't want to let that go to waste. Look, Sim, I'm very grateful for you to be coming along today to tell us about your very interesting history. Good luck with the distillery, and I do hope you pick up your music side again before very long. And thank you so much.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me, John.